I think it's a real mistake to think about these big global challenges as a zero-sum competitive game. We're not going to be able to solve any major global challenge, including climate change, including a few years ago, the COVID pandemic, if countries don't act together. Now, obviously, they have different priorities.
That was Dr. Rachel Cleetus from the Union of Concerned Scientists, speaking with me here at COP30 in Belém, Brazil on November 12th. She was reacting to the International Energy Agency's latest World Energy Outlook. Welcome back to Taiwanology podcast. I'm your host, Kwangyin from Taiwan's CommonWealth magazine. Earlier this month, I was reporting from Belém, Brazil, the site of COP30, the United Nations Annual Conference on Climate Change. After 2 exhausting weeks of negotiations, the final deal landed, however, with a weak punch. On November 22nd, Brazil's COP president, André Correa do Lago, pushed through a compromise agreement that boosts climate finance for vulnerable nations, but avoids directly mentioning the word fossil fuel. It was clear that Brazil hoped to project unity, especially after the world's largest historical emitters, the United States, declined to send an official delegation. Yet the final text underscored the opposite. As the BBC put it, after a bitter row over fossil fuels, a deal passed that contained no direct reference to them. The tension was visible everywhere in the venue. Indigenous activities from all over Brazil, they staged 2 protests at the venue, blocking the entrance, demanding inclusion in decisions about the rainforests they protect. And midway through the summit, a fire broke out and triggered an emergency evacuation in the Blue Zone, which was a surreal, almost perfect allegory for a COP convened in a world already burning. This was the backdrop, however. The world overshooting 1.5 degrees, major economies rolling back their climate policies, fossil fuel interests still deeply entrenched. But at the same time, renewable energy deployment accelerating at an unprecedented speed. So in today's very special episode, we explore this moment from 2 perspectives, the global reality and Taiwan's presence on the ground. In the following segment, you'll hear Dr. Rachel Cleetus of the Union of Concerned Scientists speaking at a COP30 press conference. She lays out the global picture, why clean energy is surging yet still not enough, why fossil fuel phase-out is unavoidable, and how political obstruction is pushing the world toward overshooting 1.5 degrees. Let's hear from Rachel.
Not at a rate that's fast enough to outpace as much fossil fuels as are being deployed. So there's no path to meeting our climate goals unless we also have a fast, fair phase-out of fossil fuels alongside this extraordinary renewables growth. The report is one of many that have come out in the last couple of weeks pointing out that unfortunately, because of inaction from world leaders, because of fossil fuel companies obstructing, unfortunately, this report is also confirming that the world is on the brink of overshooting 1.5C. That has profound implications for people around the world. This report also points out that we have scenarios available to us. We have choices. These scenarios are about choices. We have choices available to us that can help mitigate as much as possible even now. Those choices are really important. And they include rapidly ramping up renewables and efficiency, cutting back on fossil fuels, making sure that we have systemic changes in the global economy that encourage more clean energy transition more rapidly. So basically, this report is pointing out that, yes, it's a daunting challenge, but we have a tremendous opportunity here to accelerate a clean energy transition that will benefit consumers by lowering costs. That will be a huge public health boon because, of course, fossil fuels are a killer, and climate change itself, unchecked climate change, is taking such a severe toll on people around the world already, and it will grow worse. One thing I will say about the report is it sets up, I think, an unhelpful frame around zero-sum competition. I think we will only make this global clean energy transition a reality if there's cooperation across countries in terms of manufacturing and deploying renewable energy as quickly as possible. The other thing to point out is this report does not take into account the cost of climate change. So when we're talking about scenarios that blow past 1.5 to 2.5, even getting to 2.9, we're talking about trillions of dollars of damages around the world. Those costs are not accounted for in these scenarios. And finally, I will say that coming from the United States, it's really, really reprehensible that the Trump administration is tearing up clean energy policies, setting back progress that had been taking place across the United States. This is going to directly harm consumers. It is going to raise electricity costs. It's going to slow renewables growth. It's going to increase pollution from fossil fuels. So the opportunity now ahead of us in the United States and around the world is to embrace a clean energy transition that's beneficial to people, not lock in a fossil fuel agenda that's just serving the narrow profit interests of a few large corporations. Thank you.
So that was Dr. Rachel Cleetus with a global picture. A world on the edge of overshooting 1.5 degrees, renewables racing ahead, but still shadowed by entrenched fossil fuel interests, and governments pulling climate policies on the back burner. For Taiwan, however, the COP conferences always look and feel very different. Because we're not a United Nations member, there's no Taiwan country pavilion anywhere in the blue zone. And yet, Taiwanese organizations and government representatives keep showing up each year, finding ways to bring our stories, technologies, and demands into the negotiation space. To understand how that works in practice, I sat down with Jack Huang, one of the organizers behind this Taiwan-supported pavilion in the Green Zone, which is funded by Taiwan's Ministry of Environment and carried out by the foundation, STUF, based in the US. Let's hear from Jack.
So we're here in Belém, Brazil, and the venue of COP30 climate negotiations. And sitting next to me, not in the studio today, but in an open air restaurant. So apologies if there's some noises in the background. So let me introduce our guest today. His name is Jack Kwangyin. He is from Taiwan. So Jack, say hello to our listeners.
Hello, this is Jack. Hello, everyone. So I'm pleasure to be here. Let me kind of introduce myself a little bit. So I'm Jack, was born in Taiwan, and now I'm the consultant for the United Nations. But here today, I'm in COP30, not just as a consultant in the United Nations, but I'm also the volunteer for some pavilions or some NGOs come from Taiwan.
Right. So this is my third COP. I have covered COP21 in Paris and 23 in Bonn, Germany, and this is my third COP. And this is really like going around full circle because 10 years ago I was in Paris. Everyone was so enthusiastic. There was a lot of momentum for the climate ambition, 1.5 degree Paris Agreement. This time around, it's so different because we have the absence of the USA and we have President Trump not very supportive of the climate agenda, and we have a lot of uncertainty in the economy. But anyhow, it's still very exciting to be at the COP, the Conference of Parties. So yesterday I was walking around in the blue zone and I didn't see the country pavilion for Taiwan. So for those of you who are not very familiar with these COPs, they're always the blue zone and the green zone. The blue zone is where the country pavilions and the real negotiations take place. And green zone is for the NGOs and the climate activists and honestly everyone or every company can participate. But I was walking around in the blue zone. I saw country pavilions from countries all over the world: Thailand, Indonesia, Singapore, China, Japan, Korea, Germany. I didn't see a pavilion for Taiwan. Why is that?
That's a good question. And probably as you or maybe as our audience knows, Taiwan, of course, we are a country, but for some reasons in the United Nations policy, Taiwan is not exactly a country. So I think that's the reason why we couldn't see any Taiwan pavilion in Blue Zone. And not just for this time, but also for COP29, 28, or even earlier. And I also attend all of those COP, and we couldn't find any pavilion called Taiwan. That's pretty sad. And just responding to your previous question, why, even the US withdraw its power on climate change? I think as a global citizen, Taiwanese people, we are part of the global citizen. We still need to pay attention on this climate change issue because we are a small island, because we still have like 23 million people as a population. We couldn't really live without others. So climate change, it's not just in the political concern, but also it's the concern for all human beings. And sadly, as a Taiwanese, we are not really able to represent our own country, and which is a truth, but is somehow we need to find another way to still show our performance and our contribution.
Thank you, Jack. Yeah, it's a recurring issue that we have to deal with. But this brings me to our topic today. We have a pavilion in the green zone in the COP30 in Belém, and it's called Stuff. So what is that? What is that stuff? Who is supporting this pavilion in the green zone? Tell us about it.
Yeah, as we just say, we don't have the country's pavilion, but we still have some kind of the Taiwanese pavilion in green zone. But of course, we cannot call it Taiwan, sadly. We call that Stop United Fund, STUF. That's kind of the charity foundation based in New York, the North America, and with its global, branch, different regional office, like in Asia Pacific, it's in Taipei. And in Europe, it's supposed to be in Germany. And we also have the one in Africa and also the Australia. So Stop United Fund is focusing on the global issue, especially charity, and also care about the climate issue.
But who is behind this Stuff Fund? Who are the supporters of this fund?
Oh, that's pretty a lot because, everybody, we have this charity mind, I would say. So the founder or the supporter or the stakeholders, they come from everywhere. But most of them, they are the businessmen and businesswomen, especially before Stop Fund was founded in, I would say, 1990 something. It was a group of the business women and men in North America. They call Taiwan Business Association. And there's a very key person called Thomas Chen. Thomas, he found this Stuff United Fund, and he would like to promote Taiwanese soft power to everywhere in the world.
Right, so it's the Taiwanese business communities who are behind this. Yeah, so I could see that the pavilion was not huge, but it was very well organized, and there are a few events at the that are going to take place at the pavilion. What can you tell us about the sharing sessions that will take place?
So in the green zone, in this Stop United Fund Pavilion, actually it's applied by Stop United Fund, but we also invite a lot of private sector, a lot of NGO, even the youth power come to this pavilion to show or to share what they have done and what they are going to do in the future. Most of that regarding the climate change, but also we don't just focusing on the climate change. We also focusing on the gender issue, focusing on the Aborigine issue, or all other people who are supposed to be concerned. So yeah, we try to provide the multiple projects with this Stuff United Fund. And most of them, they do their best because we understand Taiwan, we are geographically very small, but our people is very strong.
That's a great message right there. I feel like I could end the show right there on that remark. Right. So, well, I think a lot of people might be wondering, well, since Taiwan is not a member of the United Nations, we are technically not part of the conference parties that are supposed to show up and take part in the negotiations of COP. Why should Taiwan care about the climate negotiations or this climate change issue at all? Why do you think we should care about it? This is a game for UN members. This party is not for us. We're not invited.
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, since Taiwan is not the officially UN member, honestly, Taiwan doesn't need to follow any kind of this rule. So 1.5 degree, 2 degrees Celsius, actually, not Taiwanese any business. But I think as a human being and as a global citizen, as I say in advance, we still need to pay attention and have to share the responsibility to this global climate change. And Taiwan, just take some realistic way. We are a place or we are a region which rely on the export and import. So we rely on this global trading system. So once the climate change affect a lot of economies, a lot of this kind of trading system, Taiwan cannot just withdraw ourselves from that system. In this concern, I do believe not just government, not just private sector's owner, not just an NGO or all other, this professor or whatever, everybody should be paying attention on that. So I do believe, and in Taiwan, we always call ourselves as a very strong soft power. And why don't we share that soft power to some other developing country? Because once we united with each other, then we can conquer the climate change.
Again, a very strong message. So I should say that really climate negotiations, it could feel so distant, and even if I'm sitting in a plenary sessions, all the remarks are long, and it feels like they're just going on, and it feels that the climate crisis and all the issues are so urgent, but we're doing so little. But I really like your message there. We should all work together, because if we're divided, we cannot really do anything, and we really have to come together. So can you tell me a little bit about, in the next 2 weeks in the climate negotiations, what would you like to see accomplished with the Taiwan Pavilion supported by Stuff Fund this time?
Yeah, thanks for that question. But for answering that, I do have two different perspectives. In general, I do wish COP can really come with some real action. As the chairman, like in the opening ceremony, he mentioned, like, we probably have enough ideas, we have enough solutions, but we don't have enough actions. So I do wish after the COP30, we can have something real happening in different countries or different regions. That's in general. But in another perspective, from the Stop United Forum, as one of the very remarkable representing the Taiwanese soft power, I do think we can contribute a lot to the global community, especially that's talking about the renewable energy. We have very strong supply chain. We have very strong producer, the storage, the battery, or even the solar panel, the wind turbine. All those kind of hardware and software, our engineering power is very, very, I would say, possible to share with other people or other countries. So from the United Forum, not just the energy, but also other solutions and how to make the solution become the actionable action. That's what I want to see for the next few days or few weeks.
Thank you, Jack. Yeah, so we heard from the COP chair a few days ago that this is going to be a COP of implementation. And I do believe Taiwan's message is that Taiwan can help. Taiwan can be the supporting force for clean energy, for a lot of maybe circular economy solutions, and not to mention that Taiwan is also home for a lot of the AI infrastructure, the core components, and like chips and stuff that makes chips. It's very crucial for Taiwan's supply chain to decarbonize and to try to achieve sustainable solutions, because if that cannot be achieved, the whole world's tech supply chain cannot be sustainable. And so, well, thank you, Jack, for your time. And we do hope to see a successful COP and your participation in the event.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I mean, thank you for inviting me to share my ideas. And just quote what you just said, Taiwan can help and Taiwan is helping. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
That was my brief conversation with Jack Huang at the Green Zone. Apologies if there were some noises in the background. We were sitting in the cafeteria. That was the best we could do. So we're going to take a short break here. When we come back, we're going to talk about how Taiwan is transitioning its energy system and what are the risks involved. That was my conversation with Jack Huang in Belém's Green Zone. He was laying out how Taiwanese NGOs, youth groups, and business communities are building a platform for Taiwan's voice, even when the United Nations system won't recognize Taiwan as a country. But that visibility comes with hard questions for Taiwan itself. How do we balance so-called energy security with real decarbonization? And what is our massive LNG expansion, which is liquid natural gas? What does it mean in a world that needs to phase out fossil fuels? Is there a risk that they're going to become stranded assets? For that part of the story, I went back to Dr. Rachel Cleetus, this time in a conversation focused specifically on Taiwan's LNG build-out, stranded asset risks, and why framing climate action as a zero-sum geopolitical fight is so dangerous and not necessarily helpful. Let's hear from my conversation with Rachel.
I think it's a real mistake to think about these big global challenges as a zero-sum competitive game. We're not going to be able to solve any major global challenge, including climate change, including a few years ago, the COVID pandemic, if countries don't act together. Now, obviously, they have different priorities, different governance systems. There are definitely tensions, but it's in the interests of people in Germany, in the US, in China, to really see these problems solved. That's why you have governments and diplomacy. This should not devolve into a zero-sum game where everybody loses. So the opportunity here is really to think about how can we galvanize this clean energy transition around the world. And China is already showing a path forward where its manufacture and exports of clean tech have actually helped reduce emissions in other countries as well. Now, of course, China has to do a lot more to turn down coal because that trajectory of coal is incompatible with climate goals. Everyone is falling short. Nobody is a good guy.
No.
From a climate perspective, every country has to do more. But where we go from here can't be replicating those geopolitical tensions that will prevent the deployment of renewables. Rather, it's to think about what can we do to accelerate in this moment. So I think the frame in the IEA report is actually not helpful, and it is good to see a conversation here that is about collective action, not one better than the other or one or the other, but everybody acting together. And it's really a shame that the United States has stepped away completely at the federal level. Now, of course, we have states and cities here, forward-looking businesses. We saw the governor of California here. There are a lot of people, even within the United States, political leaders and businesses who understand that in this moment they have to do everything they can do, even if the federal government is slowing things down.
And one more thing you mentioned is the lock-in the investment in fossil fuels, for example, natural gas. Taiwan really has invested a lot of money in building infrastructure for LNG in the name of energy security. What do you say to that?
Well, to any country, the United States has also invested a lot in LNG exports. And to any country, I would say, what will energy security mean on a planet that's literally burning down? You have to think about it in the context of keeping people safe from runaway climate change. And all of these scenarios, the IEA scenarios, the net zero scenarios, are showing that those are incompatible with large build-out of new fossil fuel infrastructure. So these will become stranded assets. These are not assets that should be invested in. Large new LNG infrastructure does not make sense in a world that's trying to decarbonize.
So they will become stranded assets in how many years? Do you 20 years or something?
I think within the next 10, 15 years, there will be we are already seeing renewables accelerate so fast that in many cases, these just won't be worth investing in. And it is really exposing countries to volatility on the global market as well, price volatility around gas. That is a real concern in the United States, for example, because gas is used both for heating and electricity, and this exposure to global price volatility is harming consumers. So there is a transition that has to happen, and it will take a little time, but a little time, not an extended time where you build infrastructure that's going to be around for decades.
Can you say something about the Union of Concerned Scientists? What is that?
The Union of Concerned Scientists is a science-based advocacy organization. We're over 55 years old. We're headquartered in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And we have a pretty simple mission, and it is that ensuring that the latest, best available science guides policy making so that the world can be safer, so that we can have the environment can be cleaner, that the world is prospering. So we work on climate and energy. We also work on issues like nuclear security. We work on food and environment. Yeah. So I work in the climate and energy program.
Thank you. If you have one hope for...
If I'm being honest, COP30 climate conference always leaves me with a few hard truths and a bitter taste to the mouth. First, the science is clear, but the politics are not. The world is on the brink of overshooting 1.5 degrees, and after 2 weeks of negotiations in Brazil, they delivered a deal that avoids naming fossil fuels altogether, which is a bit of a letdown. The indigenous protests and even the fire that forced an evacuation captured that disconnect perfectly. Second, Taiwan still found its voice somehow. Without UN recognizing or a blue zone pavilion, Taiwanese NGOs, youth groups, and private sector partners still showed up anyway, sharing their solutions and insisting on being part of the global conversation. And we're making some friends on the way. Third, Taiwan's decisions do still matter. LNG expansion risks locking in stranded assets and becoming obsolete in probably about a decade, according to Rachel. Geopolitical tensions around clean tech supply chains could slow global progress. And as Rachel of the Union of Concerned Scientists warned, turning climate action into a zero-sum game is a path where everybody loses, and it's something we should all try to avoid. However, back from Belém, one thing is clear. Taiwan is woven into the global climate story, and our decisions will shape our energy and climate future in the years ahead. And I should say that in the future climate conferences, I will still try my best to attend and bring reporting on the ground to all of you. Thanks for listening. This has been another episode of the Taiwanology podcast. Stay tuned for more reporting. Our next episode will be online December 23rd. Talk to you soon.